And we are live from the heartland of America. I'm Jeffey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Welcome to you. Thank you for being a part of this edition of Podcast Excellence. We welcome you here. We appreciate you being here. And we're going to talk some good stuff today as I get everything adjusted here. We're going to talk some interesting stuff. We're going to talk some good stuff. We're going to talk some powerful stuff. So I'm getting ready to bring some big stuff to you. Speaking of big stuff, tomorrow, 1 p.m. Central Time, we'll have Halo Marquise. He thinks he's cracked the energetic signature of the DOSOM WIST of 5G. It's going to be a very, very powerful program. I invite you to be here tomorrow. And we do have more Podcast Excellence coming up today. But right now, we've heard so much lately, and we're hearing so much lately about end time prophecy. There's when things go on and people get worried and times get uncertain, it's almost A follows or B follows A that you're going to have prophetic stuff start cropping up. People saying, oh, this is the end. People saying these are the end days. This was prophesied in that book. This was prophesied in this book. It's just exhausting. And it's exhausting to have to come back and talk about it all, but that's kind of what I do. So today we're going to talk and we're going to feature the subject of prophecy, and we're going to talk about end time prophecy being the exclusive invention of the Jesuits. Now, just think for a minute of the implications of that statement. Many of you are hooked on end-time prophecy, especially those that are visiting. You love end-time prophecy. You're hooked on end-time prophecy. I remember Cynthia telling me that when she was a Christian, I mean, she loved the end-time prophecy. Everybody that's a Christian loves the end time prophecy. But you know what? Eventually you got to grow up, and eventually you've got to learn what's right and what's real. And if in fact I'm able to show you, and you know that I'll be able to, that end time prophecy is the exclusive invention of the Jesuits, then that means that everybody that is teaching end time prophecy in any form is either knowingly working for the Jesuits or unknowingly working for the Jesuits. If end time prophecy is an exclusively Jesuit enterprise, then anyone that is using it, teaching it, is working on a Jewish agenda. Excuse me, a Jesuit agenda. Didn't mean to say that other word. I meant to say Jesuit, not the word that I did say. It's a Jesuit agenda. That's a big statement, and it's a big statement that demands proof. But again, let me say it. Every single person that you see talking about prophecy coming from Scripture is preaching Jesuit doctrine. Most of them, to be frank with you, know it. Some of them don't. And unfortunately, if you're preaching Jesuit doctrine, if you're preaching end-time doctrine, you should know it. And really, ignorance is no defense, because then it's just laziness because you haven't taken the time to do your due diligence. So let's look at this. Whoops, get back. Get back. Come on now. Now, I took a little bit of this out of a book that I wrote a few years ago. It was called Revelation 12 and the September 13th or whatever it was, that whole September 23. I can't remember the day of it, but you remember it. I'm a Bible college graduate. I was a licensed minister for 20 years. I say this for the people that are visiting. Serving in some of the largest denominations in the world, more than 100,000 hours of studying the biblical text, 2 years of collegiate level training in the disciplines of anthropology in both cultural and physical geography. Former minister, having no doctrinal position to defend, will examine the claims of prophecy proponents and render a verdict based solely upon the textual and historical grounds. So what does the text, talking about the AHAK, the B-I-B-L-E, that we know was rewritten after AD 70, both Old and New Testaments. What does it say, and what does the history say about prophecy? It's time to think for yourself. Now, it was September 23rd, Revelation 12 sign. It's time to think for yourself for a change instead of listening what people say to you. And let's think about the history of prophets in general, right, for a moment. Let's think about the history of prophets that are within our genre, and let's limit it to modern prophets. Do you know that every single prophet that has ever predicted the end has always been wrong? Why are you so convinced that this time the one you listen to is going to get it right? Every single one of them, every single time they made a prophecy regarding the end is here, they've always been wrong. Why are you so convinced that the one you listen to is going to be right this time? There's a reason why they're always wrong and always will be, and we'll see what that reason is later. So let's look back over the history of prophetic errors and just the ones in modern history, okay? In 1831 through 1834, there was something called the Great Disappointment, and this chart here is showing the Great Disappointment. And a fellow named William Miller did an extensive study of the Bible prophecy of Daniel 8:14, and he predicted the second coming of HERU DISTU. And if you don't know who that is, and you can always reference the word box below. And by the way, this first segment is being brought to you by Mystech, my great friends at Mystech, and Halo, who is the owner and founder of Mystech, will be here tomorrow. And we're going to let you know and underline the fact that Mystech does restore you to the original Schumann resonance of the earth. It does amazing things for your blood, amazing things for your energy, EMF, and amazing things as well for your subtle body, your energy body. So go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the Mystech logo, and you still get a full 20% off when you order through jeffreydaugherty.com. So he said that William Miller, not Halo, William Miller said that HERU DISTU was going to come back, the second coming as they call it, sometime between March of 1843 and March of 1844. Now, this was the first great modern eschatological prediction. What does eschatological mean? Well, that's eschatology. Eschatology means the study of the end times. The only reason I say that is you'll hear that word bandied about, so now you'll know what it means. So the first great prophecy, the first great end time prediction in the modern era received widespread media attention. It gave us the Seventh-day Adventists. It gave us the Jehovah's Witnesses. And yet 1844 passed without DISTU returning. And the whole scenario was called the Great Disappointment. So it started with one disappointment, and it quickly led to more. The Jehovah's Witnesses have had 2 failed prophecies of end times. Thankfully, the Adventists learned the lesson from William Miller very well and didn't predict any more dates. The Jehovah's Witnesses, however, a little slow on the uptake. You can see these 2 visuals here. The Witnesses predicted 1914 would be the end of the world, very clearly. And they also predicted that 1974, if you do the math on that graph there, would also be the end of the world. Now, in the defense of the Witnesses, they predicted 1914 to be the end of the world. They were in the midst of a world war. 1974, times were hard, times were tough, kind of like they are now. So you can see why people are making these end time predictions. But again, like Mr. Miller, the Jehovah's Witnesses were wrong multiple times. Somebody mentioned this in the chat already. 88 reasons why the rapture will happen in 1988. I was already a full-time minister by this time. And I remember getting this book in the mail. And to be very frank with you, it almost got me. It came very, very close to getting me. It was very well put together, very, very well researched, very, very studious. And it should have been, because it was done by a former NASA engineer, a rocket scientist. So Bible prophecy is harder than rocket science eventually. And I was going to say because rocket science is real, but I'm not even sure of that. He predicted infamously that the rapture would occur sometime between September 11th and September 13th in 1988. And he gave 88 fairly compelling reasons, which is much more compelling than some of these modern day prophets that give you one reason because they say so, two reasons because their version of what the script to be sure says. But anyway, he mailed out 300,000 copies for free. Got to cost him some money, but he got it back because he sold 4.5 million copies of this book in bookstores. You got to take your hat off to Mr. Whistleblower. At least he didn't lose his ass. He lost his reputation, but he did not lose his ass. So believable was this guy that Christian Trinity Broadcast Network was interrupting regular programming to provide special instructions on preparing for the rapture. But guess what? 1988 came, 1988 went, and we're still here. I'm not going to include Nine Nanya's prediction of a Christmas rapture, and this Christmas just passed. I'm not going to say anything about that in this podcast, but she still got hundreds of thousands of subscribers, even though she was wrong again. I don't get it. And then in 2011, you've got the Family Radio, Harold Camping, president of Family Radio. You see these billboards that he put up everywhere. May 21st, 2011, second coming. The AHAK guarantees it says. Guarantees it. You hear that word a lot with these. I guarantee you. Well, guess what? May 21, 2011 came and it went. Even though this guy had more than 150 broadcast stations in the United States, his own radio network, he made a lot of money. And guess what? 2011, no return of HERU DISTU. Wow, that HERU. Then, of course, we had the 2015 blood moons, Passover, Tabernacles. Passover, Tabernacle, 25th. Oh, these definitely coming this time because they're blood moons in conjunction with the LEMISH festivals. It's got to be the one. Well, the prof hits just keep coming and coming. Eschatological prophecy fever is a real malady. It's a real virus that infects the minds of otherwise stable individuals like some of you that are listening to me. Not our people, but visitors. Sending them off and chasing the wildest of signs at the slightest celestial provocation. And today, it's happening again. We got a few bad times, and everybody says the end is near, and they're all prophesying and promising and getting visions and hearing from sky daddies and guaranteeing. And oh my God, some poor soul even said that today a spaceship was going to come, but spaceship didn't come. We're still here. We're still here. But folks, in the land of the crazy, the one sane man is king. In the midst of all of this date-setting craziness, has there ever been a constant, stable, sane historical position that's been held by the overwhelming majority of church scholars? Because we're talking about people that are church people that believe in prophecy. Objective study proves that modern prophetic fervor is an aberration. It's a mutation. It's a deformity. When viewed in the context of total church history. Listen to this next statement. Did you know that for nearly 1,600 years, 15th century, nearly 1,600 years, and there's only been 2020, so You don't have to be a math major to know that 1,600 out of 2020, that's the most of it, the big majority of it. The church had one single position on prophecy, one. There was no debate. There was no discussion because it was plain and it was simple and it was easy and they hadn't been corrupted yet by Jesuit influences. They knew, made sense, perfect sense. And all that changed with the rise of the Protestant Reformation. Really, it all changed with the response to the rise of the Protestant Reformation. And many people have heard the story about how Martin Luther, as the picture shows, he went up to the Wittenberg chapel and he nailed his theses to the door. And we think, oh, but actually, I've been to this chapel, I've stood at this door, and it wasn't as dramatic as people want you to believe, because the truth is that everybody nailed their stuff up on the door. So if somebody had a pig for sale, pigs for sale, tap, tap, tap on the door of the chapel. If somebody was making handmade boots, knock, knock, knock. I don't know if they had a tender door or not. I tend to think not. But anyway, he nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg chapel in 1517. And Luther's was just one of many that was stuck up there. But the point is that Martin Luther, along with John Calvin, along with Zwingli, Cranmer, Knox, they viewed the Reformation as a reaffirmation of classic church doctrine. They talked about justification of faith. They talked about being opposed to the selling of indulgences. And one of the great themes that's forgotten about the Protestant Reformation was the reaffirmation of the historical 1600-year almost, this happened in the mid-1500s, 1600-year almost legacy of end-time prophecy. And over 1600 years, save a few, the institution of the papacy was the main target of the reformers. They sought to reaffirm the unanimous, ubiquitous, everywhere, all the time understanding that the papacy and the Pope were the sole embodiment of the Antichrist. In fact, the fifth round of talks in the Lutheran Roman Catholic dialogue notes, in calling the Pope Antichrist, the early Lutherans stood in a tradition that reached back to the 11th century, really a lot more. And not only dissidents and heretics, but even saints had called the Bishop of Rome the Antichrist. And the reformers were united. All of those guys believed the Pope was the Antichrist. And the small-called articles in Article 4, published in 1537, said the Pope is the very Antichrist. He's exalted himself above. He's opposed himself against the DISTU. Therefore, just as little as we can worship the devil himself as, what are those words, as KORC and MON, we can endure his apostle, the Pope, or Antichrist in rule as his head. This all proceeds from the fact that the Pope has wished to make himself equal and superior to DISTU until he has dared to issue commandments even to the angels in heaven. From the treatise on power and primacy of the Pope, also 1537, now it's manifest that the Roman pontiffs, that's the Pope, with all their adherents, defend and practice godless doctrines and godless services, and this all marks the Antichrist, plainly agree with the kingdom of the Pope and his adherents. From the Westminster Confession, there is no head of the church but HERU DISTU, nor can the Pope of Rome in any sense be the head thereof, but is that Antichrist, the man of sin, the son of perdition, who exalts himself against HERU DISTU and all that is called God. They all believed the Pope was Antichrist. And how could they all believe the Pope was Antichrist? Because they thought and knew that prophecy was history, not future. Because they taught, everybody taught, that the church in the growth of Romanism, Roman Catholicism, and the persecution of non-Roman Catholics by the Roman Catholics was the tribulation period. Revelation to them had been completed by AD 70. And man, let's be a little more. Let's say it was completed by AD 300. That's way, way, way too nice, but it wasn't most people that believed in the scripture. It was every person that believed in the scripture. So much so was it a part of their belief that it was one of the main planks of the Reformation. Nobody believed in any prophetic events after AD 300, period. And that proved that the Pope was Antichrist. And along come the Jesuits and the birth of eschatology, or end-time prophecy. So you got all of these Protestants running around and just about this close to getting a printing press, telling everybody the Pope's the Antichrist, proving it from the scriptures, and about ready to print books about it. So they had to challenge this. The Catholics had to challenge it. And in 1545, Inigo Lopez de Loyola, a.k.a. Ignatius of Loyola, a Basque nobleman, interesting, from Spain. Well, I've never been to Spain, but he had. And he founded the Society of Jesus, commonly known as the Jesuits. Remember that. He's from Spain. Spain, Spain, Spain. What did he speak? Spanish, Spanish, Spanish. Remember that. And the Society of Jesus is called, the Society of HERU is called the Jesuits. And the Jesuits were different than other societies within the church because they swore a special vow of obedience to the Pope. And the Pope had personally authorized the society's creation. And also different was that Loyola, as you can see from the suit of armor he's wearing, brother had a military background, and he only got his calling when he was recovering from a cannonball shattering his leg. Dude had a cannonball shatter his leg. They'd fire those cannonballs. Most people think they blow up. No, they bounce and bounce and roll through the ranks of men, and a big old ball of lead rolls and rolls, shatters bitches' legs, takes people's legs off. He must have been at the back of the line when the thing finally hit him. Wow. And the opening lines of the founding document of the Jesuits says, whoever desires to serve as a soldier of God and to strive especially for the defense and propagation of the Catholic faith. He was that pesky corner pin. Jesuits are referred to colloquially, that means like commonly, as God's soldiers, God's Marines, or the company. And those of you that understand and know anything about politics, you're thinking the company, that's really strange that the Jesuits would be called the company. We'll get to that in a second. So the Pope personally authorized the creation of the Society of HERU, the Jesuits. Coincidentally, of course, at the height of the Protestant Reformation, which was calling him the Antichrist. And it was just coincidental that Loyola had a military background. And it was just coincidental that he got a call when the Pope needed a bitch to do some work while he just happened to be recovering from having his leg shattered by a cannonball being the corner pin. The Pope needed soldiers for a war on Protestantism, and the Pope found him a warrior and said, hey, I want you to be the head of my special cadre of people that are going to go to bat for me. And interesting, folks, the Jesuits are called the company. You know what else is called the company? The CIA. The Central Intelligence Agency. Jeff, are you saying that the Jesuits and the Central Intelligence Agency are connected? Well, what I'm saying is that the Jesuits are called the company and the CIA is called the company. And interestingly as well, it's sometimes claimed that the name, the company, originates from the association of the initials CIA with the word CIA, which is the Spanish. Where was Loyola from? Well, I've never been to Spain. Where is he from? Spain. And the CIA is called the company because CIA is the Spanish abbreviation of the word compañía, or the company. Ooh, where was Loyola from again? Spain. Interesting. Interesting. Interesting and interestinger. And hopefully you've had your C60 Purple Power so you're able to keep up with this great information that is coming out to you. And powerful revelation. If you go to c60purplepower.com and click and use the code TCW10, you can have enhanced spiritual, intellectual, psychological, personal, and yes, physical, even sexual benefits from C60 Purple Power. Cliff High says he's alive today because of it, and I know that I'm having a better life because of it. C60purplepower.com, TCW10. So the Pope recruits a military dude to head a cadre that defends him. The cadre is known as the company. Our CIA is known as the company. Why is the CIA known as a company? Because it comes from that Spanish word. Where's Loyola from? Spain. The Jesuits are an elite, Pope-dedicated military and intelligence organization. The Jesuits and the CIA, one and the same. And they're both using prophecy as a great psyop. Wow. Wow. You don't hear this anywhere else, folks. You don't hear this anywhere else. That's why you're here. That's why you should be part of the Cousins Club. Did I get all of my Loyolas? I think I did. Now comes this guy, Father Francisco Ribera. And just a note that I just noticed for you guys that were all mad at me because I said Saint Germain, you know, faggoty Saint Germain with the violet clothes and the gay mustache that you just Sarah New Agers love so much. Remember, he's associated with the Maltese cross. And not only does Marina Abramovic wear the Maltese cross, but look what Mr. Ribera's got. Oh, it's a Maltese cross. So Saint Germain, Jesuit, Saint Germain, Abramovich. You really want to hang out with those kind of people? And this looks curiously like the original NFL logo to me, but am I ready to say the NFL is Jesuit? I don't know, but we should look at that sometime. So here comes Father Francisco Ribera. He was a Spaniard like Loyola, and he was one of Loyola's Jesuit soldiers. He was recruited from being the confessor to St. Teresa of Avila. Keep that in mind. And Ribera's intimate association with Teresa uniquely qualified and equipped him for the great work he was selected to perform for God's soldiers in defense of the Pope. In 1585, height of the Protestant Reformation, he launched what might be, and I think is, the greatest counterintelligence operation in history. That's why I say the Jesuits are an intelligence operation, and it's more than coincidence with the Jesuit CIA. He was about to create the curse of prophecy. He was about to create the curse of end-time prophecy. He was about to create the curse of eschatology. And he began it by writing a book called Sacrum Beati Ioannis Apostoli and Evangeliste Apocalypse Commentaries. I almost got through it. I don't do Latin. I don't do Latin. And when Sam and Dean do Latin on Supernatural, I always mute it because I don't know what kind of spells they're throwing around. You know, when you can't pell-mell throw up spells on YouTube and just let everybody look at them. You can't just read them and let everybody hear them. You can't just put up sigils and let everybody see them unless you want to get bitches infected with bitches. Spiritual bitches. And you get spiritual bitches, you get stitches. And it ain't good. So anyway, little bit of humor injected into the scenario. And what I just said translates to the sacred writings of John the Apostle and commentary on the Apocalypse or Book of Revelation. So, Ribera's task was as straightforward as it was audacious. He was to counter the Protestant Reformation and remove forever the ubiquitous identification of the Pope. What's ubiquitous mean? Everywhere, all the time. Every damn body until this fat guy wrote his book believed the Pope was the Antichrist. Everybody everywhere until this fat guy wrote his book believed that prophecy was history. Nobody until this fat guy wrote his book ever dreamed that there was more prophecy to come. It was over until this fat guy wrote his book. He is a fat guy. Come on now. And think what he's got under that toga. Not pretty. Not pretty, I guarantee you. It's the Middle Ages. He's fat. There's a bunch of rolls and folds and not a lot of water, not hot water. Ain't got no Irish Spring. Woo! That's all I got to say about that. And to counter the Protestant Reformation and remove forever the ubiquitous identification of the Pope as the Antichrist, Ribera wrote a 500-page commentary. He asserted that the first few chapters of the Apocalypse apply to ancient pagan Rome, and they do, and that the rest of the book was limited to a yet future period of 3.5 literal years right before the second coming, which is not true. And nobody, you got to understand that, until 1585, nobody ever thought the book of Revelation was future. Nobody ever thought the book of Daniel was future. Nobody ever thought Matthew 20 was future. Nobody. Do you understand? Those ideas were not anywhere in the ether. They were not here until 1585. And the Jesuit Francisco Ribera invented this stuff. It was the first shot in the Counter-Reformation. And during this 3.5-year period that Ribera, the Jesuit Francisco Ribera, introduced for the first time ever. Do you understand what I'm telling you? This idea of the tribulation period. Whether you think it's 3.5 years, whether you think it's 7 years. No one had ever thought about it. It had never come into human consciousness until fat Jesuit wrote this book. The idea that this coming end time boogeyman would persecute the true Christians never came to anybody's mind until fat Jesuit wrote the book. The idea that they would rebuild a third temple in Jerusalem never came to anybody's mind until fat Jesuit wrote the book. The idea of the two witnesses being future and getting killed, nobody thought of that till fat guy Jesuit wrote the book. That the mark of the beast would be something faced in the future. Nobody ever thought about it until fat guy Jesuit wrote the book. the trumps, the vials, the seals. Nobody ever thought of it being future till Fat Guy Jesuit wrote the book. Do you understand what that means? Everybody that is preaching or teaching future persecutions of the true believers, everybody that's preaching or teaching they're going to rebuild the third temple in Jerusalem, everybody that's preaching and teaching about the two witnesses, everybody that's preaching and teaching about the mark of the beast or chopping heads or tribulation or collapse worldwide, them persecuting, they're preaching Fat Guy Jesuit doctrine. It did not exist until Papa Aldo here, Papa John, Papa Francisco made it up. Ay, ay, ay. Ribera proposed that 1,260 days. Who do we know that talks about the 1,260 days? Well, whoever it is, they're talking Jesuit smack. The 1,260 days, the 3.5 years were future. Ribera, in one fell swoop, wanted to wipe from the collective, and he probably didn't wipe that thoroughly, I'm just saying, from the collective cultural memory of the 1,500, really 1,600-year-old ubiquitous convictions of the church. And that wasn't even the audacious part of the plan. That wasn't even the audacious part of the plan. He not only wanted to silence the screaming voices of the Protestant Reformation, but he wanted to convert the children, the sons and daughters of the Protestant reformers, to their new Jesuit doctrine, and it worked. It worked. And we live and see and hear and watch on YouTube the proof that Francisco Ribera, Jesuit, his plan worked. How could one fat Jesuit priest write one book and forever remove the historical position of the church and overcome the loudest voices of the Protestant Reformation so that the sons and daughters of the reformers would all be preaching Jesuit doctrine and, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cousins of all ages, and warning against those that refuse to preach Jesuit doctrine, warning against those that point out that they're preaching Jesuit doctrine. Everybody but me that I hear on YouTube is preaching Jesuit doctrine. There might be some others. I haven't heard of them. I'm glad. I hope I'm not the only one. But as far as I know, I'm the only one that is preaching, that is teaching, that is proving from the scriptures and history itself that end-time prophecy is a Jesuit invention. And everybody that preaches and teaches end-time prophecy is working for the Jesuits. Most of them know it. Some of them are too lazy to have found it out, but they're all guilty as charged. And you ought to condemn them and sentence them to banishment from your computer and your phone. The Jesuit Ribera's great work introduced to the world futurism for the first time. Futurism is, again, the proposal that the book of Revelation, the book of Matthew, the book of Daniel is future, not historical, and the ubiquitous belief of the church that it applied to the Middle Ages and the papacy. Ribera proposed that Revelation did not teach the Pope was Antichrist, nor did it identify the Roman Church as the seat of Antichrist. Revelation was not a historical rendering of the rise of Rome as the beast and the seat of Antichrist. Ribera was the first to propose that the book of Revelation was about the future and that Daniel's 70th week was also future. Therefore, the Pope could not be the Antichrist, and the Roman Church could not be the seat of the son of perdition. The tribulation period was not a record of Roman persecution at the direction of the Pope as Antichrist, but a future period of persecution by some faceless boogeyman that Ribera called the Antichrist. And one look at the beliefs of modern eschatology, one look at the beliefs of these modern end-time prophecy teachers is all we need to gauge how successful Ribera was. Look at the people you watch on YouTube. Look at the people that I hope you don't watch on YouTube. Read the books. Go to the conferences. X-Gen eschatology, X-Gen end-time prophecy today, exclusively. That means every one of them, except for moi. I'm the guy that says no. I'm the guy that drew the line in the sand and said no more. But you know that. That's why you're here. And if you don't know that and you just stumbled in not knowing where you are or what this is, now you know. End time prophecy today, exclusively, every damn one of them interprets the book of Revelation as future, the book of Daniel as future, the Antichrist as future, the third temple as future, book Mark of the Beast is future, head chopping, future, rapture, future, second coming, future, trials or vials, bowls, trumpets, future. And from the earliest writings of the church through the Protestant Reformation, right up to the publication of this Jesuit book, the futurist interpretation and all those imaginations were non-existent. Non-existent. And today, the Jesuit futurist interpretation stands unopposed. Almost. Tracy, I wish you hadn't erased that one. It explains a lot about what I've been doing, but that's okay. That's okay. Wow. Just wow. And when I say wow, it makes me think about focused life force energy. It really does. Because that's high consciousness on demand. And you're probably not going to be locked down anymore, but you better get this trial. You better just go ahead and buy it so you know how good it is. And then you can take it on your phone back out into the world. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the FLFE fluffy logo, and you get 30 days free and you get a great price that other people don't get, by the way. And plus, they now have 2.0 fluffy animal fluffy 2.0. Makes your animals fluffier. I don't know if it actually makes them fluffier, but there's a reason why I can't get Merlin and Barkley out of this room. And you can't get Merlin out of the house, period. But that's another story. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com. Get the fluffy. You need it. You need it. You realize we're the only ones telling you this. You realize we're the only ones that aren't preaching Jesuit doctrine. You realize we're the only ones that aren't preaching Jesuit doctrine, right? And who takes all the flack? Me. That's okay. I'm a big boy. That's what I'm here for. Amazingly, all of this because one book and a dedicated cadre of good Catholic soldiers. One book written by a Jesuit soldier priest, and this one book invented the futurist eschatology, futurist Bible prophecy, and obliterated the historical position of the church and spat upon the blood shed by the Protestant reformers to today stand virtually unopposed. This is why I'm a contrarian. This is why I speak out. This is why I'll never stop. Jesuit futurism assigns all prophecy to the future shortly before what they call the second coming. Daniel, Isaiah, Matthew, Thessalonians, Revelation, all of the end time sections of the Bible, future. Jesuit soldier Francisco Ribera has done the impossible. He's accomplished the utterly preposterous and completed the patently absurd. This is from my book, by the way. September 23, Revelation 12 sign. He and his fellow Jesuits not only defeated the Protestant reformers, but transformed the sons and daughters of the reformers into soldiers in the Jesuit army. They're trannies. All of these people today preaching Jesuit future prophecy are trannies. Transformers, trannies. They're all trannies. Virtually all prophecy teachers dutifully parrot Jesuit doctrine. Prophecy preachers are an army of volunteer Protestant Jesuits. And somewhere, fat guy Father Francisco Ribera is laughing his ass off and pointing his fingers at you dummies that listen to these dummies that he fooled with one little book. Just one book. That's all it took. Yeah, just one book. That's all it took. Come on. Just one book. That's all it took. Yeah, just one book. Just one little book. That's all it took. So let's talk about one of these cornerstones of this bullshit that he taught and that you believe. Not you, but you all. Jesuit futurists invented the rapture, one of the most popular and profitable teachings in Jesuit Christian eschatology. This is really, really interesting here. Historical evidence shows that the rapture, the pet doctrine of the Jewish eschatologists, was invented to take heat off the papacy and the Roman Church as the seat of Antichrist. The more recent heritage of the rapture can be traced. We know about the rapture because of what happened at the churches of John Nelson Darby in the 1840s. This chick stood up. This chick named Margaret MacDonald, one chick, stands up, gives a message in tongues. Honda, Honda, Hyundai, Hyundai, Toyota, Toyota, Kawasaki, Kawasaki, Subaru. And then she gives the interpretation that the rapture's going to come and he's coming to take all his bitches before any of his bitches have to go through any shit. And this is where St. Teresa comes into play. Remember her? Remember St. Teresa? We were talking about her. She was, Father Ribera was her confessor. She was a prominent Catholic mystic and prolific writer in the Counter-Reformation. See how it all works together? And I'm telling you, he was hitting that. Fat boy was hitting Teresa hard. He was spanking that nun ass. I'm telling you, he was. Call it a revelation if you want. Him and Loyola probably pulled trains on Teresa. Where does this stuff come from? She was known as an advocate and experiencer of religious ecstasy. Yeah, and a little more than that. It's a type of altered state of consciousness characterized by greatly reduced external awareness, expanded internal spiritual awareness, and frequently accompanied by visions and emotional, physical euphoria. That's all about speaking in tongues, cousin. It's my conviction that Teresa's ecstasy, besides the one she got from Fat Guy and Hop Along Loyola, come on, work with me. Cannonball shattered his leg, Hop Along. Yeah. Speaking in tongues, that's where they got it from. So, Jeff, are you telling me that speaking in tongues is Jesuit fallacy doctrine? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I did it every day of my life for 25 years. And I'm telling you, it's Jesuit mind control. Tongues and its accompanying displays are exactly the type of things that St. Teresa experienced and taught. And Jesuit Father Ribera witnessed it, and he can tell you more about St. Teresa's tongue, but more on that later. Never. Jesuits leveraged St. Teresa's expertise and experience to fuel their new eschatological creations, unseen spiritual forces that St. Teresa was in contact with are still influencing eschatological enthusiasts to this day. If you're speaking in tongues, you got some dirty, bad, energetic entities messing with your head. If you're preaching prophecy, Jesuit futurist prophecy, you got some dirty little energetic entities messing with your head. If you're listening to people that preach prophecy, Jesuit, end time, futuristic prophecy, you've got ugly, energetic, bad guys infesting you like the fleas of 1,000 camels in your pubic hair. Only worse. Mary MacDonald was employing Teresa-style mysticism when she helped launch the speaking in tongues movement that still powers a great deal of Christianity today. C.I. Scofield, his Bible and the Jesuits. We're almost done. Of part 1. Focusing on the Darby MacDonald episode, the rapture was included in the notes and commentary of the Scofield Reference Bible in 1909 because he was there watching Mary MacDonald do her thing. And his Bible became, and he also had a correspondence course, it became the textbook for all of the Protestant Bible institutes that sprang up in the United States. So this allowed this Jesuit doctrine of the rapture and the accompanying end-time prophecy to get codified into the textbook of all these Protestant Bible institutes that were being taught to the sons and daughters of the Protestant reformers, and who now all of them exclusively teach it. Teresa and her mysticism at the very beginning of Jesuit Ribera's work isn't a coincidence. It's evidence of a Jesuit brain trust executing a masterful counterintelligence operation. Remember, both the CIA and the Jesuits are called the company. And look at that. I told you we were near the end. Wow, how about that? I've been working on that all day long. Whew, that's some good stuff that you're not going to hear anywhere else. All right, let's go to the chat room. What do you say? What do you say? Why not, I say. I'm a big boy. I can take the heat. We need a scheme to distract the Christians and make them lazy. They found it and they got it and it works. Good. Don't, truth seeker. Way to be a good boy. Are they a part of it? Yep, absolutely. Look ahead instead of looking around. Not sure what that means, but the general populace couldn't read or had access to a copy of the Bible unless they went to a church to look at it. But the thing you forget about, Delia, is that at the rise of the Protestant Reformation was also the rise of the printing press. That's why the Protestants were making such a big deal, because now they could speak this stuff, put it in print, and give it out to everybody. And there was an explosion of literacy. All of a sudden, most people could read. Why do you think the Catholic Church was so upset? For they had never had people that could get access to any books in it before. They'd never had any people that could read before. So you had all of these forces working together. That's why you're here, because you get to listen to a guy that's been doing this for, come next month, 40 years, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Only a disgusting mind can write a thing like the Revelation book. He had it covered, and I agree with you. He had it covered, and I agree with you. I have a friend that worked for the company for 25 years. The Jesuits or the CIA? He was the John Hagee of his time. That's a fat joke and a good one. Yes, Islam was created by the Jesuits, just like modern Judaism and what we know today as Christianity. No, LEMISH goes with another J word. Ribera's hair makes me think he was on quarantine. Well, he was in a monastery. So, yeah. Yeah. Jeff is certain of it, but hasn't put all the pieces together yet. What could that be? I have all the pieces. I think she's talking about the Islam thing. I'm still stuck on company CIA. What a nugget. It is the C60, the Mistech, and the Fluffy at work. No doubt about it. And you know what also is working in my behalf? I got to tell you, folks, what's also working on my behalf, you know what's coming, don't you? It's the rocket. Make sex great again. Make relationships great again. Lift off with the rocket. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about. Go to getmyrocket.com/CWB and you'll be amazed. And it'll change your life, cousin. I'm promising you. All right, let's see what else we got here. Daniel isn't compared a prophet by the LEMS because he wasn't a prophet. He was a remote viewer. Great stuff. Great stuff. Great stuff. Let's see what else we got. Beanie Boy, absolute Jesuit shill. Absolute 100% without a doubt Jesuit shill. Knows it. Knows it. Said we have no chance of escape from this reality. He doesn't. We do. I've been told that Fluffy extends 5 acres. Unless you heard that from the people at Fluffy, I would doubt it because they tell me no. They tell me it's about 300 feet. But anyway. Yes, absolutely. Mark Vaughn, C.I. Schofield was a Jesuit. Jeffrey nailed it in the episode about Daniel. Thank you, Lauren. I agree with you. I think I did too. Let's see. Let's see, people. More than meets the eyes, absolutely. So the Jesuits were the reasons the crusade started. Not the time for that. Not the time for that. Ooh, good one. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Mission accomplished, Troy. Guess what Pope Francis is? He's a Jesuit. There you go. They already have the papacy now. Absolutely. Let's see. Lots and lots and lots of stuff. Speaking in tongues was a hard habit to break. Yeah, I like to do it. And every now and then it'll kind of slip out, which is really, really weird. Almost as hard as those autopilot words that just pop out. Right. Absolutely. I want someone to speak to me in tongues. Ha, ha, ha. That was actually funny, though. I felt fake when I spoke in tongues, as though I was making myself fake. Maybe you did. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't get the virus. All right. I think we're about at the end. Well, interesting. That's news to me. But you heard it from them. You heard it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Well, folks, that's some good stuff. Tongues is possession. That's exactly what it is. That's some good stuff, ladies and gentlemen. That's some powerful stuff. And I really do appreciate it. But I would double check on that 5-acre thing. I just would. I'll have to ask Guinevere about that. But anyway, guys, interesting stuff, powerful stuff. I'm coming to you in a fasted condition, and boy, am I hungry. I tell you I am. Powerful, powerful, powerful stuff. You've got to see this. You've got to realize this, and you got to tell somebody about this, because we are being sold a bill of goods. All prophecy that you hear, and that's about all you do hear, Jesuit, Jesuit, Jesuit. Do you want to be a Jesuit? Wow. Yes, cousins tonight, for sure. I'll keep you posted. Well, folks, we're in a world where it's easy to fool people and hard to convince them they've been fooled. That's what Mark Twain says. It's harder still to just give them info and let them figure it out for themselves. But that's what we're here for. We're the last generation of real humans. We're in the world-changing business, and that business is a booming. What we're here to do is guide our own spirit, master our own ascension, be our own guru. We're here to unindoctrinate ourselves. For Tracy Dyer and on the other great moderators, for the lovely Cynthia, I'm Jeffey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, inviting or thanking you for being here, saluting you for being here, seeking after truth, and inspiring you to get busy.